Up next in the broadcast, a day after agreeing to hold inter-Korean family reunions, North Korea says it could backpedal on the deal if South Korea goes forward with its planned military exercise with the United States. The nation's security ministries put their coordinated policy efforts on center stage in a joint briefing to the president. And ahead of Friday's start to the Sochi 2014 Winter Olympics, qualification rounds begin with athletes getting a feel for the ice and snow. Primetime News begins now.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. It's Thursday, February 6th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Geunhye.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin with North Korea's shifting stance regarding the upcoming inter-Korean family reunions.
Pyongyang threatened to reconsider their agreement to resume the humanitarian event if Seoul doesn't cancel its upcoming joint military drills with Washington. Our Hwang Sung-hee tells us what's at stake.
Just one day after the two Koreas agreed to resume the long-suspended family reunions, North Korea called on the South to halt its upcoming annual military drills with the United States, threatening to reconsider their previous agreement.
We're clearly stating that dialogue and invasive war practices can never coexist, just as reconciliation and conflict can't.
The two Koreas agreed on Wednesday to resume reunions for families separated since the Korean War from February 20th to the 25th. The dates coincide with Seoul and Washington's Key Resolve exercises, which begin in the last week of February every year. North Korea had been continuously calling for a cancellation of the drills, although it made no mention of them during Wednesday's talks. In response, South Korea's unification ministry said the annual military exercises are purely defensive in nature and reiterated the issue would be dealt with separately from family reunions.
We can only take North Korea's change in attitude as an attempt to either stop our justified military exercises or to call off the family reunions.
The ministry said the family reunions must be held as planned no matter what, as the elderly divided family members should not have to go through the disappointment of another cancelled event. North Korea called off a round of family reunions last September, just days before they were to take place. Amid the uncertainty, Seoul's unification ministry said that a team of South Korean engineers will cross the border on Friday as planned to check on the facilities at the reunion site. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
For the first time in 4 years, Korea's security-related ministries came together on this Thursday to brief the president on their efforts on coordinating foreign and North Korea policies.
Our Park Ji-won has more on their collaborative vision for national security.
At the Defense Ministry in Central Seoul on Thursday, the Foreign Unification and Defense Ministries and the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs briefed the president on their annual policy goals and plans for the year. President Park put the utmost emphasis on the nation's defense as being the foundation of every other government policy.
어떠한 대화도 또 신뢰 정책도 우리의 안보 태세가 허약하면 제대로 추진하기가 어렵고 경제도 사실은 안보 태세가 허약하면 살아나지를 못합니다.
In the status report, the Foreign Ministry said it will take a principled and effective two-track approach to denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula. Against a backdrop of increased insecurity in inter-Korean relations, the ministry said it would improve bilateral cooperation with neighboring countries such as China and Russia and its traditional ally, the United States, while using multilateral pressure to engage with North Korea. This is part of the Foreign Ministry's three main policy goals of building a sustainable peace on the peninsula, inducing change in North Korea, and securing global support for reunification. The Unification Ministry says it will aim to create sustainable inter-Korean policies through dialogue and a variety of cooperative projects, and to lay the groundwork for reunification with the North. In its three-pronged strategy, the ministry said it will work toward building a sustainable peace, carry out the president's policy of trust politic, and make mid- and long-term plans for the reunification of the two Koreas. The Defense Ministry vowed to strengthen its ability to react to nuclear threats and prepare for the transfer of wartime operational control from the U.S. to Korea. This is the first time in 4 years that the security-related ministries came together to give a status report to the president. Government officials say the joint briefing shows the government is concentrating its efforts on coordinated foreign and security policies. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And as part of trust-building efforts, the Unification Ministry plans to forge ahead with a number of projects with Pyongyang.
Our Yurian reports on initiatives that include a peace park on a heavily fortified border dividing the two Koreas and cultural exchanges between Seoul and Pyongyang.
Seoul will aim to strike a deal with Pyongyang sometime this year on building a peace park in the demilitarized zone separating the two Koreas. The Unification Ministry made the announcement on Thursday as part of its key policy plans for the year during a joint policy briefing session with President Park Geunhye. The plan, first proposed by President Park last year, aims to create a peace park marked in yellow in the 4-kilometer-wide buffer border zone. The project was proposed with an aim of improving relations with North Korea. The Ministry for Inter-Korean Affairs also announced plans to push forth a so-called Eurasia initiative that called for linking energy and logistics infrastructure across the continent. The ministry said it will explore measures to renovate a 54-kilometer track connecting North Korea's port city of Najin and Russia's eastern border town of Hasan. Through the project, Seoul wants to ultimately build a distribution channel that runs from South Korea's southernmost port city of Busan through North Korea and to Russia. Moves for the project have been underway since November, when President Park met with Russian President Vladimir Putin and signed a memorandum of understanding that will help South Korean companies take part in the railway revitalization project. The Unification Ministry also announced it will look into businesses that could enhance cultural understanding between the two Koreas by working in various areas, including sports and arts. The ministry emphasized, however, that it will also dedicate equal efforts to denuclearizing North Korea while trying to improve relations with its northern neighbor. Yurian, Arirang News.
Before your day ends and another begins, get the latest news live from Seoul.
Residents whose features restrictions is on the rise.
Closing ceremony.
Expert analysis from Asia's heartbeat.
The legislature, circumstances.
With a viewpoint only Korea's global network can provide.
The United States, the latest report.
Unrivaled access from a team always on standby.
Meaning came on to maneuver, trying to cover up the South's true intentions.
President Park Geun-hye dismissed the Minister of Oceans and Fisheries on Thursday after the politician drew public criticism for her attitude toward an oil spill in waters off the south coast of Korea. During a visit to the accident site in Yeosu over the weekend, Yoon Jin-suk was shown in a photo covering up her nose with her hand to avoid smelling the spill. The picture went viral, with critics saying Yoon was taking the effects of the spill too lightly. She also called the company whose oil was spilled, GS Caltex, the main victim in the ordeal. Yoon had already been the subject of criticism over the initial handling of the incident. More than 36 Yeosu residents were treated in the hospital earlier this week for breathing difficulties and nausea after not receiving the appropriate protective gear while helping with the cleanup efforts. At the National Assembly, in the first day of a 4-day interpellation session, lawmakers engaged in a heated debate over pending political issues, including the candidate nomination system for the upcoming local elections. Kim Yeon-ji reports on the push for an open primary system.
On Thursday, lawmakers from the two main rival parties debated over whether to scrap a system in which political parties nominate candidates for local elections, a campaign pledge made by both ruling and opposition presidential candidates in 2012. The main opposition Democratic Party sharply criticized President Park Geun-hye and her cabinet for reneging on a pledge to abolish the system.
President Park has preached that the worst kind of politics is the kind that does not keep its promises to the people and stressed the theme of trust and principle. Would you consider advising the president to stop ignoring this issue, Mr. Prime Minister?
The ruling party said that getting rid of the candidate nomination system could be unconstitutional, arguing that doing so could interfere with a candidate's right to express their party affiliation and the voters' right to know.
The candidate nomination rights are currently monopolized by some political party leaders. I believe adopting an open primary could be the best way to give the people a chance to nominate candidates.
Both the ruling and opposition party lawmakers demanded an answer on the issue from the government. But the government promptly passed the ball to the National Assembly, saying the matter pertains to the political arena.
Even experts are divided on whether scrapping the political party's candidate nomination system would be unconstitutional. Taking these views into consideration, we would like the Parliament to have a thorough discussion on the issue and draw a conclusion.
With all sides refusing to compromise, the debate over the candidate nomination system is largely expected to dominate politics for the rest of the month. The National Assembly will resume the interpellation session next week with a focus on foreign policy, the economy, and culture. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
Now, when Typhoon Haiyan hit parts of the Philippines last year, leaving more than 6,000 people dead and millions displaced, the South Korean government wasted no time lending a helping hand. Now, hundreds of engineers and military personnel were dispatched to the island nation, and their mission continues to this day. Arirang's Kim Hyun-bin files us this report from Tacloban.
The Philippines were slammed by one of the deadliest storms in recent history, Typhoon Haiyan, in November of last year. The storm destroyed practically everything in its path and killed thousands of people. 3 months have passed since that terrible day, but ships remain eerily abandoned on land, and thousands of homes that once made a thriving community sit empty and uninhabitable. But as the saying goes, through darkness comes light, and through fear comes hope. And a military unit from Korea is working day and night to help this region and its residents get back to something approaching normality. Scores of Korean military engineers and medics are based here in Tacloban, a city decimated by Haiyan, under the mission code name Operation Arirang Angels. Their goal is to rebuild basic infrastructure, no easy task in an area akin to a post-apocalyptic nightmare. The Arirang unit was sent to help people in desperate need, but also to repay an old debt.
We came here to pay back for the sacrifices made by the Philippine troops that fought and shed blood for our freedom during the Korean War.
Despite the sheer scale of the task ahead, it's unfortunate that this team are the only foreign troops lending a hand in the area at this time.
Many forces came for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then left. But the commitment of the government of the Republic of Korea for 1 year is really unprecedented, and everybody in the world is going to look towards this involvement as a model case for the future.
From schools to hospitals, Korean and Filipino engineers are working in sync, and it seems there is nothing they can't fix. But these are just the first steps. The people of the city have expressed high hopes about what this unit can achieve over the duration of their assignment here. This newly rebuilt elementary school was the work of the Arirang unit. By the year's end, the unit plans to build 50 schools in this area. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Tolosa.
Here in the country, 4 lawsuits have been filed against tobacco manufacturers so far, all by individuals, but none has won yet.
But that may change. A Korean public agency for the first time filed a suit against tobacco companies at home and abroad. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The National Health Insurance Service, responsible for promoting the public health, says it could be seeking up to $307 million in damages from cigarette companies. The agency says it wants to raise awareness about the dangers of smoking in Korea, emphasizing that smokers are more likely to suffer from a range of serious diseases, including cancer. According to the National Cancer Center, treating those diseases comes at a high cost, especially with the number of cancer patients who are also smokers amounting to 2.4 million over the past 19 years. The NHIS says it plans to focus on cancer patients who suffer from small cell carcinoma to the lungs and squamous cell carcinoma, a type of laryngeal cancer, since the courts have already established that smoking has a direct relationship with these two types of cancer in patients. The NHIS says it costs around $1.6 billion a year as medical expenses to smoking-related illnesses, which comes out of taxpayers' pockets. Smokers currently pay around $2.30 a pack for cigarettes, of which just 33 cents goes to the NHIS. But the agency says cigarette companies do not pay into the NHIS fund. The Korea Tobacco Association, which represents the interests of the nation's major cigarette companies, has criticized the agency for threatening a lawsuit, saying it will induce, quote, unnecessary social conflict and costs. In Korea, there have been cases brought against the tobacco industry, but they've largely been unsuccessful in claiming damages. A class action lawsuit led by a lung cancer patient against the Korean government and KT&G, a major cigarette maker, failed to win an appeal for damages. A similar case filed in 2005 by the family of a police officer who died of lung cancer was equally unsuccessful. A group of 9 people sent a petition to the Constitutional Court in 2012 to repeal a bill that allows the government to participate in the manufacturing, importing, and sales of cigarettes. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
The foreign experts' take on the tobacco lawsuit on the horizon. We bring in Woo Jae-chang, a multinational litigation attorney and partner at Seoul-based Himaru law firm, in the studio. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, good to be here.
Well, as our Kim Ji-yeon just reported, there have been 4 cases against tobacco companies so far, and none of them have succeeded. What explains the low success rate?
In previous legal suits, the plaintiff based their claims on the 2 important cause of actions. One is negligence, another is product liability. But the court in previous case, it held the plaintiff did not establish or prove the one of the 2 important legal elements of the product liability and negligence.
Well, on what legal grounds is the public agency pursuing this battle against the tobacco companies? Do they have a strong case here?
I think, right now I couldn't get the complaint by the National Health Insurance Service, but probably they will file a suit based on a same course of actions. As I mentioned, the negligence or product liability. The plaintiff should prove there should be a causal link between the plaintiff's injury out of the smoking and the breach of the duty by the defendant to the plaintiff. That might be the key.
So what are the likely counter-arguments by the tobacco companies, and what will the plaintiff do to counter those arguments?
Probably, even in the previous cases, the defendants sort of successfully defended the cases by relying on sort of a legal term, assuming of risk by the plaintiff. They already knew the harmful effect of smoking. Several American judges ruled that by relying on just assuming of risk is not enough to reject the plaintiff argument like this.
Right. Similar types of tobacco lawsuits have taken place elsewhere in the world, like you said, United States, and France, and Israel. What were the outcome of the lawsuits there like?
Yeah, as you mentioned, there were several bunch of cases, especially in the States. I'd like to briefly mention that over time, the ratio of winning the case by the plaintiff has been increased. Over time, I mean the trend might be leaning toward the plaintiff. So in the past, quite a stringent standard has been applied to this kind of case. But right now, even the judges who have been in charge of the case, they have been more aware of the harmful effect of smoking tobaccos.
So in your opinion, which side has a stronger case, and how will the outcome of this lawsuit affect pending cases?
Yeah, still it's hard to predict. Still, they will have to establish the duty. I mean, the defendant has a duty to warn the public of this potential danger. Also, they had to prove that there should be causational link between the personal injury and the breach of the duty by the defendant. Even if they will lose the case, maybe the case might turn out to be really successful for the sake of the NHIS.
All right, Mr. Oh, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, when the opening ceremony for the Sochi Olympic Games kicks off Friday night, the South Korean athletes will be the 60th nation to enter the stadium.
From the entrance orders to a final preview of what's to come, we're joined by our Stephen Che at the Sports Center. Hello there.
Hey guys, as you mentioned, Team Korea is 60th of 88 nations, and six-time Olympian Lee Kyu-hyuk will hold the flag. They'll be joining the nearly 3,000 athletes who will be at Fished Stadium for the festivities. But of the bunch, only a handful can be called the cream of the crop. According to the Eurosport's list of the top 50 stars to watch at Sochi, South Korea boasts three big names: Kim Yeona, Lee Sang-hwa, and Mo Tae-bum. Queen Yeona is seeking to make figure skating history in her Olympic swan song, while speed skaters Lee and Mo will defend their 500-meter gold medals on the oval. Meanwhile, the safety of the athletes on the downhill slopes is becoming a growing issue in Sochi. After Norwegian snowboarder Torstein Horgmo broke his collarbone a few days back during practice, the slopestyle course was tagged as a safety concern. As such, organizers canceled a women's training session, while two-time Olympic snowboarding champion Shaun White bowed out of the competition altogether. White, an extreme sports veteran, called the course intimidating. And moving on to the greens, the pros and the stars will align for the AT&T Pebble Beach National Pro-Am Tournament opening in sunny California. Now look out for four-time winner Phil Mickelson, as thrilling a golfer as any other, as well as NFL MVP Peyton Manning, who's still shaking off the Super Bowl loss from Sunday. Now let's get to Thursday's top matchups, starting in the KBL. KCC stuns SK 77-65, but now we go on to the game of the night. It's the Mobis Phoebus taking on the Dongbuk Promi. Now both start off slow, but it's first place Mobis with a slight edge going into the locker rooms. Now it all comes down to the last possession with the game tied. Lee Kwang-jae sinks the three, and Dongbuk upsets the #1 team 61-58. Let's move on to the V-League. It's Russian Cash taking on Hyundai Capital in Ansan. Now it's a battle to start, but Hyundai Capital gets the first set and also the second set. Now it's the third set. Russian Cash's Barodi slams one far left. Agames earns 20 winners for his team, and Hyundai Capital wins in straight sets. And that does it for me here in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Check back at midnight for the latest in the world of sports.
The bitter cold has cleared out, and we even had some early spring-like weather here today in Seoul.
Right, but don't get too used to it. Let's find out more by going over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Bo-kyung.
Good evening, guys. Well, there looks to be snow throughout the country tomorrow. In fact, those in the Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-buk-do provinces began to see snow a couple of hours ago. Gangwon will see between 20 to 60 centimeters of snow and Gyeongsang-buk-do 20 to 40 centimeters. Otherwise, the mountains of Jeju, Ulleungdo, and Dokdo Island are forecast to get between 5 to 20 centimeters. Currently, the nation is at the edge of a high-pressure system from China, which is why we're seeing clouds move in. Well, late tomorrow night, parts of the central regions, including Seoul, will also get a taste of snow. The east coast of Gangwon may get more than 80 centimeters of snow through next Monday. Taking a look at tomorrow's readings, Seoul starts off the day at -3 degrees with a high of 8. Meanwhile, Gwangju and Busan hit 9 and 7 degrees respectively. Moving on to other regions, Jeju peaks at 9 degrees while Dokdo and Kumgang make it to 2 and -6 degrees respectively. Well, that's all for now, and back to you guys.
And that's a broadcast on this Thursday night. I'm Yoo Ji-hye in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.